Welcome back to Can Business Save the Planet? My name is Alex Schulze, and I'm your host. And today I'm going to be joined by Mr. Peter Nicholson Jr. Peter is the CEO and founder of WCPD, which is a firm that specializes in philanthropic strategic tax planning. Today we're going to dive into everything around donations, tax planning, and just really sustainability as a whole with high net worth individuals. We're going to have a great conversation and looking forward to begin. So let's dive in. Peter, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Alex.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and letting our guests learn a little bit more about you, your background, and just your views on sustainability and how to leverage it to help drive the planet forward. So if you could, for our listeners, could you give us a little background on yourself and just your history?
Sure. I'm 60 years old. I'm a father of six. That usually sets people back to
Yeah.
have six children. So family life is a big part of me. I was born and raised on a beach in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And you had sunny Florida. I had cold 60 Fahrenheit Atlantic Ocean. So very different. And I think
Yes.
that's also why I love the Bahamas so much, and also Florida. We had a place in St. Pete Beach, but now I'm very much invested for the last 24 years in Exuma, Bahamas, one of the
Yes.
best boating places in the world, and turquoisey
Yes.
water. And we'll talk about how gorgeous that water is, and we want to keep it that way. But I think
Yes.
that's why I really enjoyed Exuma, because I only had 8 weekends of summer. July and
Yes.
August, that's it. It's
Yep.
short summer, and now I have 52 weekends of summer, thanks to flying south for just literally 3 hours. So grew
Yes.
up in Nova Scotia, did a business degree like you, finished when I was 22 years old, and actually started in the financial services business right away.
Okay.
I was always good at selling products, selling chocolate bars, selling magazines, subscriptions going through high school, selling alcohol as a bartender. So I
Okay.
just said, okay, well, let's move on to selling financial products in 1987. And I started in August, and October of 87 was the big stock market crash. And
Okay.
that wasn't a bad time to start. It hurt the people that started the business a year, 2, 3 years earlier because they were used to the big incomes. Things were going very
Yes.
well in the booming 80s with Reagan, etc.,
Yeah.
President Reagan. And so I was just still used to making $4,000 a year as a summer job. So it didn't
Yeah.
matter to me. I only made 40 grand in my first year, but started in the financial services business. Had an insurance license, an investment license, and in 1995 we got into tax reduction. And
Okay.
Canada pays 54% tax rates personally once you're over 200 grand of income, so a lot higher, or very
Yeah.
similar to the European tax rates. So it's a point that the high net worth, high tax people really want to get proper tax advice, and we would be the communicators of the tax lawyers that would design the structures, but had a difficult time. If you've ever met a tax lawyer, Alex, they're very brilliant, but they're not great communicators or salespeople. To take something very complicated and make it simple, they're not good at that.
Got
So
it.
that was my job. And then lo and behold, in 2006, there was a tax law change in Canada to help philanthropy. And I think that's where you and
Okay.
I are connected. And
Yeah.
Canada wanted to do more for philanthropy. And so the Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, finished the job that a previous Prime Minister, Paul Martin, started. He gave a half capital gain if you donate public stock to charity. And Stephen Harper said no capital gain, which matched what the Americans have been doing. And that
Okay.
promoted a lot more giving. We had a share called a flow-through share to help the mining industry since 1954 to help more exploration. So you can get 100% tax deduction in Canada to find more minerals. And
Oh,
this has
wow.
become, yeah, so, and this has become a lot more topic because the government actually just 3 years ago gave us an extra credit. Not only if you write a check for 100,000, if your income is 300 in Canada, we can get you down to 200,000, but you
Yep.
also get 15% credits and now 30% credits if you go after critical minerals.
Oh,
And the
wow.
critical minerals are the lithium, the cobalt, the copper, the zinc, the uranium, how we can help with climate change. And that's really helped the mining business because
Yes.
the mining business had a terrible public relations problem. For 200 years, it did the opposite of helping the environment. It destroyed the environment. It had
Yeah.
human rights issues.
Yep.
And they've had to really until that point, until Biden and Trump and our prime ministers and presidents and prime ministers across the world have said, look, we need more of these critical minerals. We have to pivot to electrification to get
Yeah.
away from the carbon. And that's actually what got really exciting in our business. So I'm actually helping find more critical minerals on one tax policy.
Yep.
And then I helped create back in 2006, and it's still available 18 years later today. You can then use those flow through shares to give to charities of your choice and get a second tax deduction. And
Got
the
it.
the exciting thing when you do that, Alex, is that because we're at such high tax rates, two tax deductions on two different policies allows you to pay up to the maximum level the government will allow us. About 20% of your tax bill, a tax bill you hate to pay, can now
Yeah.
go to charities of your choice for a 1 penny cost.
Wow.
So if your taxes were 100 grand and you're paying 100 grand to the IRS and to the
Yep.
CRA here in Canada, using our structure, including our legal and accounting fees, now 80,000 goes to the IRS or CRA to help
Yep.
the government. 20,000 goes directly to charities, and that can be in the environment, that can be Four Oceans, that can be
Yeah.
whatever the 82,000 charities, and that's probably why there's such a good connection between your what you're doing and what we're doing up here in Canada. And
That's
that's in a
super.
nutshell what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I always love to hear the different incentives to help out across the board, whether that is environmental issues, whether it's education, any of these other nonprofits or
Yeah.
any of these other groups that are doing amazing things. And I'm curious, did you see a surge in activity, with these new programs being rolled out? Like, was there a big
Yes.
spike, an uptick, and that's what you think really helped?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like a lot of businesses, it sounded too good to be true at the beginning. So 2006 to 2010, it was very difficult to find donor investors, and now we have a waiting list.
Oh
So
wow,
the first 4 years were very difficult. People were, this sounds too, and they're very hesitant here in Canada. I mean,
sure,
CRA, the IRS, am I going to get in trouble for this? There was a couple of
yep,
dodgy tax scams, like there always is in
sure,
any business.
sure,
But we had advanced tax rulings from Revenue Canada that said,
yep,
here's the pathway. As long as you follow these rules, you will get your 100% tax deduction. And eventually we got KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst& Young,
yep,
PwC, plus all the other junior accounting firms on side. And that's when it really started to take off.
yep,
And then I said we had another jump because the mining business has been in a terrible bear market since 2011 when India and China stopped growing at 10%. They're not consuming as much, but we had another big jump with this electrification pivot. And that,
sure,
you
sure.
whenever you want to call that 2019, I mean, Al Gore talked about it. We've seen the pictures. Climate change is something that my children are saying, Dad, we want you to focus on as well.
Yeah.
So as a 60-year-old man, I'm getting pressure from my 9-year-old, 11, even my 28-year-old. I've got, a long
Yep.
range of kids. They're
Yep.
all into the environment way more than my generation was, or
Yes.
my dad's generation, my dad's 83, never even crossed their mind. I mean, the
Yep.
environment was, well, it was always there. I mean, we talked a little bit in the 70s about pollution and
Yep.
garbage, but that's about
Yes.
as far as we got in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that all the time. They reference the a lot of the commercials that were run in the U.S. as far as pollution and trash being thrown out the window and things like that. And the commercials I've seen, and it's interesting you say that because actually yesterday I saw an article and I just did a quick search. And if you go to trends.google.com and you see search trends over the historical search trends through the past of time, sustainability as a whole has just done this hockey stick like growth, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. And so I
Yeah.
think there is a big trend across the board where it's becoming expected, with consumers. It's becoming expected with businesses and individuals across the board. And just like you said, a lot of kids nowadays are really trying to push the needle forward. And so
Yeah.
I think it's comparable with me, right? My parents didn't really think about it much at all, and now they're aware of it and talking to everybody that we can as far as the impact of like microplastics and ocean plastics just as a whole, and just how you really can avoid some of this waste plastic, and you just don't need it at certain instances with a lot of reusable methods. So, very curious to hear your thoughts on now that you have your kids and your children influencing you to make a
Yeah.
larger impact. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I mean, I'm going to be handing over the planet, to them, right? And so I think it's fabulous to get the pressure from the new generation, and education is there. Visualization of these massive mounds of plastic floating in the ocean,
Yeah.
which if you didn't have it on the internet, you wouldn't see it. Even 20 years ago. So when things go wrong, it can spread very quickly on the
Yes.
internet,
Yes.
and we see it when the kids walking down the beach in Exuma, right? We
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
trash, and depending on which way the winds are blowing, the currents are, It's a full-time job to clean up our beach. We have a mile-long
Yes.
beach next to our resort.
Yep.
I did buy, I did buy a former Four Seasons residence called Grand Isle. I still own
Yep.
20% of it, and we need to clean that beach. We need to clean all the
Yep.
beaches, and
Yes.
it's a difficult job. And I actually saw the first time I saw Four Oceans. I was on an airplane, flying for business, and your video was there. It was probably about, I don't know, 10-minute little movie.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, this is kind of neat. And I loved how you were all dressed in blue. You're cleaning, and just the bags and bags of garbage that you were throwing on your platform, bringing it out. And yeah. So, and here we are,
Yeah.
literally about 6 months later. And I do know Mark Pathy, so there's a
Yep.
connection there. Mark and I, he's a big philanthropist here in Canada. He pays a lot of
Yep.
tax. This structure makes a lot of sense
Yep.
to Mark and his peers. He's big in the environment. No, I think it's look. There's two major problems in my mind of this world,
Hmm.
and just by we're very happy that we're helping both. And the first, of course, is climate change, right? Front
Hmm.
and center. The second is income inequality.
Hmm.
The haves and the have-not gap has never been bigger.
Yeah.
And it used to be, the Irvings or these billionaire families in America and Canada. It would take generations to build that up, 100
Yep.
years, right? Third generation.
Yep.
Now you can become a billionaire with a great tech idea, and you can cash out like WhatsApp in basically 3 years, and you're a
Yeah. Yeah.
billionaire,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Crazy.
that has never ever happened. So there's a lot of
Yep.
what can you do with all that money? And what's
Yes.
great with our structure is we're making people that never really thought about philanthropy and using the tax code to motivate them so that they can be president for the day and direct that 20% of their tax bill to charities
Yep.
of their choice. And most people are not, that's the equivalent of 10% tithing. And
Yeah.
most people in our generation can't afford to tithe. That
Yeah.
10% was a big number.
Yeah.
It came about back in the late 1800s and 19 more religious that if you didn't tithe for the church or your single, you didn't go to heaven.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a big there big
A little bit of
penalty.
guilt.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit of guilt. But now what we're saying is, and that's why I'm so happy with the giving pledge for that started with Gates and Buffett.
Yep.
And is now, hundreds and hundreds strong of billionaires. We need the wealthiest people in this world to be giving more to charity, more to the environment, and being
Hmm.
open about it. To
Yeah.
letting the middle class and the lower income class say, hey, we are sharing our good fortune, and they should do that to make change. Because if
Yeah.
they don't, then the lower income, the middle income class, we will vote politicians in that will take all your money through estate taxes or other areas, and it's just great brand awareness. We'll talk about that, I guess, later in the podcast. But
Yeah.
what great advertising it is, what great public relations it is
Hmm.
when you're there seeing, sharing your good fortune, giving back to whatever that cause. It could
Yeah.
be cancer, it could be children, education, it could be women, it could be, the list is long. But
Yes.
you and I, of course, environment is very important to us, and that gets a chunk of my philanthropy.
Yes, and let's talk about that. I think that's a great segue into the brand aspect. And so we talk to a lot of people as far as we're trying to make sustainability cool, and we're
Yeah.
really trying to do everything we can to drive as much awareness around it. And so talk to me about the brand awareness and some of that PR and some of those things, the benefits across the board, because it should really be an opportunity to talk about the amazing things that are happening when people do make these decisions.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, we see it all the time. People want to buy their products, their services from companies that are giving back to the community.
Yep.
We had a car dealership that had a branding recognition on a children's hospital, and they
Hmm.
also do a lot of advertising on the internet, any which way they could to be brand awareness. But what they found is by branding that emergency center in the children's hospital, people are there. I used to be there a lot when the young kids are younger, and they
Hmm.
see, oh, look at that Chrysler dealership. Next time they're going to buy a Chrysler minivan, it's in their head.
Yeah.
So that's an example of cutting through, advertising, which is hard to get people's attention, and
Yes.
to attach it to philanthropy. Yeah.
Yes, understandable. And I think that's a great kind of strategy. And at the end of the day, that's one thing that we do is we try and partner with brands to help them communicate their impact. At the end of the day, you want to be able to tell the world about what you're doing and the impact that you're having across the board, especially if you are partnered on some of these awesome initiatives. And so, we really do feel that is a very important thing to be able to communicate that and articulate that impact across the board.
Yeah, 100%. And that I don't remember. I went to business school back in in the 80s, and that was never a chapter in any of our
No.
business.
Yeah.
And now it's a must. Like you
Yes.
have to have something. What do you stand for besides
Yep.
making money, right?
Yes.
And what will and your employees want to know too. So if you
Yes.
want sticky employees that want to stay with you and work well with your company, you've got to have a good mission statement of what else you're doing. And
Yes.
and you can, I mean, our firm tends to spread. You can do a shotgun type of approach, sprinkling, and
Hmm.
that's because we work so many charities, and we're always asking, so we're moving from healthcare to education, the environment, and everything in between.
Yep.
But most of my other donors, if you really want to make big impact, they have a laser focus, just like they
Yes.
did in their business of how you made money. You got a laser down.
Yep.
Gates and Buffett said the number one thing that made them successful is focus.
Yes.
So if that's the environment, if that's cleaning up the ocean of all this miserable plastic, then let's
Yep.
laser in on it and make it.
Yes.
Because when you sprinkle like I do, and that's also because of I'm in the philanthropy tax business, I have to
Yes.
sprinkle.
Yeah.
Because if you don't give a little bit here and there for every charity, they feel left out.
Yeah.
But it's also nice the little charities, and that can really, a little bit like a 5, 10, $20,000 gift can make a huge difference.
Yes.
When you're giving it to the United Way or to
Yep.
Harvard or
Yeah.
to U of T, these are major, major institutions that even $1 million donation doesn't really move the needle a whole lot.
Drop in the bucket. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
dropping the bucket.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that I definitely am a big fan and very much support of the grassroots organizations out there doing awesome things because you are right. A 5 or 20, $30,000 donation is a massive, massive thing for them. So, I do believe that across the board. And, I'd love to understand your thought process, as you just mentioned, when it comes to people, planet, and profit, the triple bottom line. Tell me about, how you view that and how you advise some of these businesses or donors, rather, just when you are looking at potential organizations to support and how you can help them across the board.
Yeah. Well, what I'm finding, because by now we're dealing with people that are making well over 200,000 a year, and some of them are
Hmm.
making multi-millions, and their corporations are paying tax, and they can use our structure to help their corporations give more to charity.
Yep.
And what's interesting is, and this is getting into this, the philanthropic, giving pledge. For them to make another million, 10 million, $100 million of net worth does not emotionally excite them anymore. Does not get
Yep.
the family. A lot of ours are family businesses. It just doesn't. What
Yep.
does is building up their foundation, giving up to more charity. So that is now
Yeah.
the emotional driver of
Yeah.
these families that have amassed massive wealth, and the world needs it, right? So,
Yes.
so that's what they're finding is that, yeah, I mean, the profit should be there so that they can give more to charity in the engine, but really that has become now, it's more the charity that is really driving them to excitement. And the planet, boy, oh boy, I mean, we all see what's happening with the fires in LA. You just name, the fires that were in Australia and Nova Scotia. We had some massive problems with that. We've seen the
Yep.
hurricanes, in our lovely spots of Florida and Bahamas. I mean, it
Yes.
just goes on and on and on. So
Yes.
that there is this impetus that we do have to make change, and we have to get serious about this.
Yes.
And that's another area with the planet, and then with the people, the young generation just won't put up with it. The old carbon standards and staying status quo ain't gonna work anymore.
Yep.
So
Completely understand.
yeah,
Completely understand. And you mentioned the Bahamas. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, what was the drive for looking at the Exumas, getting involved there, and
right,
I'm a huge fan of the Bahamas. We go over there for diving and
yeah.
trips all the time. So tell me a little bit about what drove you to the Bahamas and what ended up in Azuma.
Sure. Well, it's basically a business story. Like I said, our firm still does investments and insurance work, but we started getting known for tax reduction in 1995.
Okay.
And by over that 5-year period, what we were finding, interesting, Alex, is clients were saying, "Geez, thanks for working with my accountant, Pete. You've done a great job of reducing my taxes, but I can't." In Canada and the rest of the world, they tax on residency. And they were
Mm.
saying, I can't, I want to go non-resident now. I can run my
Yeah.
business from Switzerland,
Yep.
Bermuda, Bahamas, one of these
Yep.
tax-free areas. So it was actually tax that got me
Okay.
interested in the Bahamas. I'd always
Got it.
loved, I mean, look, as a Canadian, yeah, we're snowbirds, right? We're flying
Yeah.
down there,
Yep.
with the Canadian geese to get
Yes.
warmer weather. So I was doing that as well through my high school and university days.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, this is going to be neat. And I wasn't the kind of guy that would just say, oh, let me just buy a piece of land or be a little tiki hut in the Bahamas. I thought it would be interesting to get into a business that I
Yeah.
could be there for not just 2 weeks of the year, but be
Yep.
involved. Then once you go to the Bahamas, you meet these wonderful people. And you see all this incredible opportunity. I mean, where Florida is completely developed, you just fly 45 minutes and you've got problems with their infrastructure. You've got incredible natural beauty, and I could
Yep.
see, okay, this is fertile ground for great businesses.
For
So
sure.
so my main reason was to get there to help my clients become non-resident. Only
Yep.
about 5% really do it. 50% of Canadians dream about being, you can imagine being tax-free and
Yeah.
in sunshine all the time with great ocean
Yes.
water. It's a
Yes.
trifecta.
Yep.
But it is complicated. You can't be back in Canada more than 6 months. You might miss the grandchildren. There's a lot of
Yep.
other issues.
Yes.
So only about 5% do it. 50% dream about it.
Yes.
And so that's what got me there. And I started working at Farmers Key, joined up with a gentleman named Tyrone Monroe that was actually born and raised in a little island of Farmers Key that had
Mm.
about 30 people, right in the middle
Wow.
just down from Staniel Key. Most people know
Yep.
Staniel Key.
Oh yeah.
Farmers is just literally 10 miles south from Guanakee.
Yep.
And what's interesting, they had 100 people on their island in 1900, and now they have
Wow.
30 people. And
Wow.
they've lost all the farming, all the fishing. It's all gone to tourism in Nassau.
Yeah.
And then Tyrone wanted to come back. He left there as a 20-year-old into Ottawa. We had mutual friends, and he said, "Pete, I know you know a lot of wealthy people. I've got some land opportunity. Would you come down and help me?" So he was
Wow.
my local person that was born and raised there, and then I brought the money. And then by happenstance, the Four Seasons Hotel and the residents of the Four Seasons finished in September of 2008. They
Okay.
built up over 5 years, took them double the time, double the price,
Yep.
because it's so hard to build on an
Yes.
island. And then the financial crisis wiped them out. So Sandals bought the
Man.
Four Seasons Hotel, and I came in and bought 40% that was left of the other residence, which is called Grand Isle.
Got it.
And yeah, and we actually hosted for many years, and we were hoping to still work with Four Oceans, but Beneath the Waves, we were
Yes.
hosting. My heavens, it was probably everything is before or after COVID, so it was before COVID, probably about 8 years ago.
Yep.
And our clients, I mean, it's a high-end property. They love to do the shark tagging, to learn, to measure, for them to be a biologist,
Yes.
for the day. And that
Yep.
was a huge hit. So we would, and it was a minimum $500 donation, I think, and people would chuck in more money. And so when you're there in the Bahamas and you see how important the oceans are, it's a great emotional pull to get them
Yes.
to give more to Four Oceans, because they can see the problem. And
Yes.
yeah. So that's what got me into the
Understood.
Bahamas. And then, I mean, it's if you haven't, if your listeners have not seen Exuma, please come swim with the beautiful pigs. We've got these crazy
Yes.
wild swimming pigs that will swim out to your boat, and
Yep.
we basically put them on the internet, our group, to help our resort, and then we also had the Bachelor television show come down, because no one really knew about the Exumas even
Yeah.
15 years ago. It's grown a lot, mainly because of the pigs, something about the
Yeah.
Bachelor television show that I got on, and of course the famous Fire Festival with Billy
Yes.
McFarland that failed, and
Yeah.
now it just failed a second time. And Hollywood is right. Even bad publicity, Alex, is good
Yeah.
publicity, because even though it was a
Yes.
failure, people still walk. Like your generation will come down. It's your Woodstock, so they want to
Yeah.
come
Right.
see where it was.
Yes.
And the Netflix documentary was huge. So look, and the good
Yes.
news is people didn't blame Exuma. They still saw the beauty. They blamed Billy McFarland and his
Yeah.
lies on why Fire Festival
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah. 100%. That's such an interesting thing, and yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff like that. I posted online about, they're saying where they're hosting the second one, and then the country comes out and they're like, "Hey, we haven't talked to anybody about this."
I know. You thought he learned his lesson with 6 years in jail, although I think he got
Yeah,
out after 3 years of good behavior. But now he's,
yeah,
anyways,
yes,
enough
yeah.
about Billy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Exumas are a beautiful place, and I think that's something that we talk about a lot. Is the plastics that you'll see there. We find that a lot of the plastics, some of them are from local islands that lack waste management infrastructure, but there's so much plastic that's just coming from around the world, and it's washing up through these ocean
Yeah.
currents, through the wind and tides, and it's actually ending up on these coastlines. And is that what you're seeing when you're whenever you guys are
Oh,
seeing plastic?
it absolutely. And one of the worst part, and I'll say, is that poor Haiti. They had their struggles, but they've been
Yep.
handing out water. They're little bags. I mean, they look like they were drug paraphernalia actually, like little cocaine
Yeah.
bags, right? I mean, they're big
Yes.
and thick, like what you see on Narcos, right?
Yeah.
But they were water, and they are there by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, washing
Yes.
up on our beach. But you're right, it's not just recent garbage, recent plastics. It's plastics from 10 years ago,
Yep.
that are still there, floating on the surface, hurting birds, hurting fish, turtles. I mean, the list is long.
Yes.
And so what you're doing is amazing by recycling them, and educating people about it.
Yes, yes, I'm very, very familiar. We call them the sachets,
Is that
the little
yes,
water bags from Haiti. So we actually had a location in Haiti. We employed over 100 full-time employees for a few years there,
right?
and so that was a big component of the water bags that we'd have. And we had a great team, and we couldn't sustain the location after COVID hit. It just got as the
Political,
environment,
yeah,
yes, the
yeah,
political, the
dangerous.
president got assassinated, people were getting kidnapped left and right. We couldn't continue to operate there. It was just too dangerous, and we couldn't go down and visit our location, so we had to shut the facility down. But we had an amazing team there. We pulled millions and millions of pounds of plastic, and we still have some great contacts that are in the area, but very familiar with the water bags and sachets. Those were, I mean, that was the one thing. So we'd go to Haiti all the time, and I just couldn't believe it. We'd be riding in the back of a truck, and you just look, and next to you comes kind of like a agricultural based truck with wood slat sides, and stacked 15 feet high would be garbage bags full of those water sachets. So it would just be this massive,
Already on
truckload
land,
of
but
all these
yeah. And
single use. Yeah, well, they're still full. They're going to deliver them, and it's just like, man,
oh, okay. So they're
yeah,
full of water. So what
full of water.
exactly is it like because it took us a long time, Alex. We did
Yeah.
not know what this was. Like 10,
Yes.
12 years ago, we were like, what the heck is this?
Yes.
And then finally, through asking questions and social media, we put it together.
Yep.
We solved the mission. But so is it full of water, and they just have a little? How do they puncture it, and how do they drink the
No.
water, and what?
No. They don't even puncture it. It's just a simple bag, and it's sealed. So there's no edge, no Ziploc seal or anything. It's just a fully closed and sealed bag.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they grab it, they rip off the corner, they'll drink the whole thing, and then throw it down. And like there's like no waste management infrastructure. There's no incentive to collect these things. So we were trying to get creative, and there were some amazing companies that were actually making reusable bags out of these water bags. So they were bringing them back, melting them down, and then making like actual
Right.
purses and shopping bags and all sorts of stuff. And we thought that was really cool because we were like, okay, can we get creative and start to create an incentivization model to incentivize the salesmen essentially? Because you'd have people that would get a larger pack and they would sell it for a little bit of a profit. And so we said, could we give them a bounty to collect the water bags back? And then could
Yes.
we use that material to make something, create a story around it, and hopefully
Right.
fund that?
I see.
It,
I see.
it was very, very difficult, but I was blown away to learn about that because it's just a simple bag that the corner gets ripped off. They drink the water
Right.
and toss it, and that's the most affordable means of
It-
delivery for water in some of these areas that lack clean drinking water. So
For
it is
sure. And,
tough,
and, and
It's
a and a water bottle that we're so used to is taking too much plastic, too much cost. You're right. They're just
yes,
it's the most simplistic, cheapest way to get fresh water to the people of Haiti. But then look what happens to it. Yeah.
yes. Crazy. It's
Wow.
absolutely crazy.
Uh,
Yeah. So, I'm curious, as far as consumer values, we have a topic as far as consumer values reshaping brand expectations, and why sustainability is no longer optional. I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I know we've talked about your kids, we've talked about some of the businesses. What's your viewpoint when it comes to sustainability not being really optional, but rather it's becoming expected? And what are your thoughts overall with that?
well, look, it's you're right. I think if you do not have a sustainability plan, if it's not well, well positioned on your website that people don't know, your employees don't know, you won't be a successful business. It's as simple as
Yep.
that now. It's
Yep.
not a, should we? It's we have to, and it's yeah, and I have to say that's because of also a lot of where we are in this world where we've done so well when there's so much money now, right? The
Yeah.
the, the global economy, has been growing for thousands of years at least
Yep.
2 or 3%, and now look where we are. So, and we've also created this problem ourselves. I mean, if anyone's to
Yes.
blame of what's happened, it's us as humans, and now we've got to fix it.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, people will buy their products and services from somewhere else. It's as
Yep.
simple as that. It's gotta be part of your business plan. And yeah, I see it even in little startups. It doesn't have to be like I saw your website. You got Dell, you've got some massive SC Johnson, which actually
Yeah.
the Johnson family is in Exuma. I didn't know if you know that. They've been there for like
No.
80 years. And SC
Oh, wow.
Johnson, that's the Johnson Wax. It's the
Yep.
off, and yeah,
Yep.
it's not the Johnson Medical Company, but yeah, no,
Sure.
they are Exuma. They've been giving money to a lot of our causes. We put on a run for Pompeii. We had a cycling event. We've always been giving money back to the high schools. So yeah, it's part of what Grand Isle is. It's part of what we are at WCPD. It stands for Wealth Creation, Preservation, and Donation. So that's the name of
Yep.
our financial company. We help you create your wealth. If you've got enough wealth creation, then we help you preserve it, and of course, we want to help you donate it using tax
Yes.
efficiency strategies. So that's what we do. But I'm also surprised at little startups. They've already
Yeah.
got a campaign, right? They
Yep.
got one employee, and
Yeah.
she's already thinking about, okay, what's going to be my sustainability? What's the cause that I want to help support? What's the few
Yep.
pennies out of everything that I'm taking from my product or service to give back? So it's
Yep.
ingrained. It's part of it's a differentiator, and it's here to stay. I don't see this
Yep.
changing at all,
Yes.
and we see it with the wealthy. Making more money ain't making them happy. Making
Yes.
change,
Yes.
making it, doing social impact, environmental impact, whatever is your passion. That's a big
Yep.
view, because if you're passionate about that cause, it's not going to be work at all. It's not. It's going to be something you're looking forward to doing. If
Yep.
you're not passionate about it, such as cleaning my garage,
Mhm.
doing paperwork, that always stuff gets delayed, right? Isn't it?
Yes. 100%.
Whereas other stuff that really pumps you up. I'm a big sports fan,
Yep.
watching basketball now and playoff hockey and NFL
Yep.
football. I have no problem at all spending hours reading about my favorite teams, right? But
Yes.
but cleaning
Yes.
my garage or cleaning my closet seems to not be top priority. So you have to
Yep.
follow your passion. And
Yes.
yeah, it's look, and I'm a big optimist. I think you have to be in this world. Pessimism takes away your energy, so
Yep.
you've got to be optimistic about and that's where I am. I mean, a lot of my generation, 60, 70, 80-year-olds, they look back, oh, the new generation, they're not the same as us, right? The world's going to hell in a handbasket. And
Hmm.
it's funny because my grandfather used to say that about my dad,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
now my dad is saying about me and saying about our
Yep.
grandkids or my
Yes.
grandmother. But it's just a different look. Every generation is different. But I think this generation has got a focus that is not, it's about work balance, right?
Yep.
It's not about always making money. It's okay, what else am I going to do for my community, my family, and my charitable cause?
Yep. I completely agree. And you just hit on so many important topics that are really my kind of viewpoints of the world as well. Is you got to follow passion. If you're not passionate about it, then you're wasting your
Pivot
time.
and go somewhere else. Yeah, because
Pivot. Yeah.
there's something that'll touch you, whether it's a job, whether it's a
Yes.
charity, pivot into your passion.
You got to find your purpose and follow the passion. I agree with you 100%. And then also staying optimistic. I am almost a toxic optimist. I can tell you that. I am always looking at the glass is overflowing. It's not only half full. But yeah, I just think it's a good way to kind of keep that demeanor and that outlook on life, and really just try and stay positive, especially when it comes to topics such as sustainability and the environment and conservation that can be incredibly overwhelming. I mean, you think about plastic, right?
Oh,
These numbers are
yes.
staggering. They're staggering. An estimated 34 billion pounds of plastic entering the ocean every year.
Mm.
We get asked the question all the time, like, don't you think it's just a waste of time? And and I just answer it with a smile, like, hey, listen, we're making an impact, and at the end of the day, the cleanups are driving. That we're removing the plastic that exists, but we're also driving a ton of awareness
Yes.
around what's happening with the ocean, so that we can try and move the needle. So I will very happily continue to clean and continue to grow for ocean if we believe that we can have some form of an impact on the ocean plastic crisis. So.
Well
And
done with that, Alex. And I hear you because the task is so monumental. But if you
yes,
don't take one step, then you're not, the start of the marathon. It's the one step,
yes,
the two steps, the three
yep,
steps, and then when you see, when you've got that barge on that video I watched on the
yep,
airplane, just chock a block full of stuff
yep,
you've taken off one. It wasn't even a mile long beach, and you
yeah,
got that much out of it.
yep.
It just wow. Well, there we did it. We that was disgusting, before, and now it's beautiful again.
Exactly.
Only
That's
because of
the
the help
goal.
of about 30 of your volunteers. It was an army.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and you probably worked the whole day on that. But
Oh,
look
we
what
work a
you,
very long time. Those are
yeah.
actually employees. Those are actually full-time
Oh,
employees.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Full-time
right.
captains and crew. And
Yep.
yeah, we work tirelessly to do that. But when we're standing on a mountain of plastic, we are very stoked, very proud, and very excited. I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I'll throw this idea. Maybe you can come help me with it. But um, we clean up our beach, and
Yep.
I saw on the internet there was a beautiful. It was a goldfish, significant size, like
Yep.
14 feet, by 14 feet, see-through. So but it was a way that our guests could dump the garbage into
Yes.
the mouth of the goldfish.
Yep. Like a
And
mesh trash can type
you're
bottom.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
So you can see that. So I would love
Yep.
to have one of those on our beach, and also a sign saying,
Yeah.
"This is where we started to collect this garbage." Because you have to have a sign. This was
Yeah.
started on Tuesday. Today
Yeah.
is Thursday, right?
Yep.
And they're like, "Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
already 4 feet high." And then
Yes.
1 week later, the whole goldfish is full,
Yep.
right? And it just
Yep.
sort of brings in, because right now we're taking it, and our employees are doing it, and some volunteer guests are doing it because they want to
Yeah.
chip in, and it feels good. But then it just disappears, so people don't see the accumulation
Yep.
of how much trash came in on our beautiful white sandy beach with not a rock on it.
Yep.
So it really stands out, and then it gets buried into the sand, Alex, where
Yes.
it just sticks there, and it's just it's a massive project, and
Yes.
humans need to see that incremental positive change. So that was an idea that we've had, and we'd like to implement that on our beach. So if you can help me with that, we can talk more of that offline.
100%. I'd love to have conversations, and anything we can do, to help drive that mission forward. We're here for it.
It,
And is there
yeah.
anything else that you wanted to talk with the guests about, or anything that you want the listeners to know?
Well, I mean, if they're listening to you, they're already well on their way to trying to save the planet and saving the ocean. So I
Yes.
applaud you on that. We'd love to do more workshops at our resort. I think
Hmm.
we're talking between our two firms about bringing you down. I know you're in your YPO as well, so
Yep.
we have another investment group called Tiger 21.
Yep.
Where they could come in, hear your team speak. They are affluent people. They can write nice donation checks and
Sure.
make a difference. So they can, of course, and give a little bit of time. Writing the check for a lot of these people, is the easy part. Putting their
Yeah.
time and energy is really the finite part. And
Yes.
they are movers and shakers. They get things done. They have the connections to really expand on helping Four Oceans. So I look forward to putting some good donors in the room, having them be educated, really touch their emotion. I mean, that's
Sure.
really what philanthropy does. It's like, oh, I can't, I'll feel too much guilt if I
Yeah.
don't take, whether I give some time to this, plus I give time and money. They want to fix that problem, and and they can do it. And
Yes.
the people that don't have enough capital, they have the time.
Yes.
to donate the time. And I believe the time is actually more important than the money in a lot of ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Understandable.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Well,
100%.
this has been a real pleasure, Alec. Great to
It
see you.
has. It has.
Yeah.
Pete, thank you very much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it, and appreciate you coming on and having the conversation, and looking forward to continuing conversations. And thank you for the insights for all of our guests.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. We'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you later. Thank you much.
Yeah.
All right. That was an awesome conversation. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us. I hope you guys all got a ton of value out of that. For anybody that's interested in learning how they could potentially get some advice as far as strategic tax planning when it comes to philanthropic gifts, you can reach out to Peter at WCPD. Amazing conversation just around what businesses and what high net worth individuals can do to have an impact on local grassroots nonprofits that are having an impact. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, like us on the social media channels, and let us know, what do you guys want to hear? Because we're going to continue to be asking the question, can business save the planet? We'll see you next time, guys.